book?
Good time to ask that question, Devin.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back to another Watches and Wonders live reactions live stream.
Part 2.
Part 2. I hope we sound good.
Yeah, if not, let us know in the comments.
I hope we look good.
Yeah, if not, don't tell us in the comments.
That's a given.
Yeah.
So we did our first live stream 2 days ago
Mm-hmm.
on Tuesday, the first day of Watches and Wonders, and if I do say so myself, it went great.
Yeah.
There were no issues. Nothing went wrong.
Not that you could tell.
No. All the problems were under the table, just like us kicking each other, telling each other to not make stupid comments.
Yeah.
But no, it was a blast. We had a good time. And also, somehow over the course of 2 hours, we managed to only talk about like five brands.
Not even like a third of the brands that I wanted to talk about.
No. And we also, we maybe overpromised, underdelivered a little bit of the live on the ground commentary from our team because
We tried.
Spoiler alert, they're busy.
Yeah. Well, and Wi-Fi is terrible at the show because there's so many people and they're all on Wi-Fi trying to upload, download, and live comments. So.
Yeah, Geneva is notorious for bad Wi-Fi, from what I hear.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if that's true, but yeah, we're back for another day, and so as we're talking now live, as we are, so this would be day 3 of Watches and Wonders for our team, and they have formally today transitioned into going to Time to Watches,
right?
Which is sort of the secondary, from what I understand, like not officially affiliated event,
right?
That takes place that has more of the brands, sort of like, I don't want to say like mid-level brands, but like maybe smaller independent brands sure. Like Sinn and Ming and Marathon and Nevada and
I think
Volcane.
Handheart's there as well too.
Yeah,
quite a bit of those. It doesn't feel right to call them mid-price point brands.
Yeah,
they're like the sub $5,000 brands for the most part.
Yeah, and honestly, like a lot of brands that you come to wind up and see.
Quite honestly, a lot of the brands that we end up wearing most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, we can sit here and talk about Patek minute repeaters all day long, but quite frankly, you and I are not going to buy that watch, and I doubt most of you will. So
speak for yourself, okay?
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, no, totally. So I think Time to Watches is definitely a little bit more upper alley.
Yeah.
Real quick before we get started, just want to remind everybody, like, jump into the chat, leave your comments. We'll throw them up on the screen. We'll debate. We'll take them down. We'll make you feel foolish.
Yeah, make you change your profile picture.
Yeah. Live on air. Also, make sure to go to moredaround.com and follow along on the editorial side. All the coverage that they're producing a ton of great stuff.
Tons.
We've got a lot of great video content, a ton of articles, and a lot of it is live on Worn Around. You know, we take, I think, a very different approach in terms of publishing content from these shows, you know, partially by necessity because we don't have as big of a team as some of the other folks in the space, but also just our personal preference that we don't really try to be first.
Right.
Obviously, in certain cases, like with Rolex and Tudor, there's like a demand for quick content.
Yeah.
And we have Zach Kazan calling in.
Talk about quick content.
Yeah. But we don't necessarily try to be first, but we try to be thorough and provide takes. So that's why sometimes on our site you'll see stuff roll out maybe a little bit slower than other platforms, but we're really trying to take our time and provide some context. So we're going to add Zach Kazan live from Time to Watches. Let's see if we can get him up. We got Zach. He's in the green room right now. So I'm going to have to switch to a view where...
And by green room, you mean he is outside.
Yeah, he is outside.
Yeah.
It still says cat shoulders, but that's on this little live stream thing.
Cat,
but that's
you look
okay.
so different.
Yeah, you're very different looking.
Yeah.
Okay, Kazan, we have you.
Whoa. Hey, guys. How's it going?
How's it going?
Is that good? How are you? How exhausted are you right now?
I've reached levels of exhaustion I can't even explain in words.
Perfect.
It's gotten to that point. I think we all kind of hit a wall today. Was when that happened. So
you're at delirium right now.
Yeah, getting there there for sure. Yeah.
So we've
How
got
are you
peak
guys doing?
Kazan. Oh, it's great. I mean, we're each like one coffee in. We're rearing and ready to go. We're here to carry and lift your energy up, so you can tell us all about the weird stuff that you've experienced over the last 3 days now.
Well, listen, I'll do the best I can. I appreciate your energy as my battery's failing. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, as long as your phone battery isn't failing, start from the beginning. What did you have for breakfast day 1?
Yeah. How were the sandwiches? This is a hot topic that people want to know about.
So the yeah, I know people. I know people want to know about that. The sandwiches are. I'll be honest. I didn't have a single Pal Expo sandwich
Oh,
this week.
all
They
right,
kind of
hang up on him.
migrated to other things. Little like plates of salmon and like fancier fare in the press lounge. So yeah, I think the age of like the little sandwiches is kind of like beyond us.
Wow.
They're still there. They're just like I never was in a position to like stop and enjoy one, unfortunately. But
Wow.
Sure.
you know,
Well, this trip was a failure already. Thanks, Zach.
you're telling me. My God, yeah.
But yeah, so like, we have a bunch of brands that we didn't get to from yesterday on the show. I don't know how much time you have to spare for us. You're clearly sitting outside in beautiful weather. I'll tell you, every time Zach joins the show, they're not making me feel bad for them about being in Switzerland.
No. Cat's
It's
like
really
running
nice
through the
here
halls.
this week. I gotta say, it's we've lucked out. We have beautiful weather in Switzerland this week. I'm actually at we just had our multiple meetings at Time to Watches.
Yeah.
Which is another show kind of like right next door essentially to Watches and Wonders. So we had several meetings there this afternoon, just wrapped up, and so yeah, there's a little kind of like there's a food truck and a beer truck and people kind of standing and congregating, and it's in a nice little kind of outdoor space. So
Yeah.
so yeah, that's where I'm currently joining you from.
One of my fondest memories of early Worn and Wound days was going to Baselworld for the first time. And the first time we ever went to Baselworld was the year that they officially unveiled like the new hall in Basel, Switzerland. They had like renovated Hall 1, and so it was like a real big. There was a little bit more like pomp and circumstance around the event, and at the end of day one, there was a Lana Del Rey concert in the sort of like quad area of Building 1, and Zach and I were just kind of like head spinning. Never had been to Basel, so it was like all a new experience. And then we're just like we found ourselves at like 7:00 sitting during the Lana Del Rey concert, like eating sausage sandwiches.
I mean, there's worse ways to spend your evening.
Oh no, it was like one of those kind of magical, moments.
Yeah,
you know, and I'll never forget.
Yeah, I'm seeing her later tonight, actually. So.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a rite of passage.
Yeah.
You guys did see last year there was some crazy concert, right, with the guy who did the Dune music.
Yeah, so that was I think 2 years ago, or maybe even 3. Yeah, Hans Zimmer. That was a really fun evening. I believe it was maybe it was an IWC sponsored event. But yeah,
because he was an
like
ambassador
really,
for them. Yeah.
yes, yeah, that's right. So it was yeah, Hans Zimmer live in concert, played all the hits. Really great.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so we have obviously a bunch of watches that we want to talk about today.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how much time you have to give us, but
I got maybe 10 or 15 minutes before I've got to catch a shuttle. So
Okay. Let's take it all.
Yeah.
Let's
okay.
go for it. Yeah.
Do we want to ask Zach's take on anything from yesterday?
I do. So very
Okay.
quickly, Zach, I'm really excited to have you on here because you are a fan of the attainable and the avant-garde. And
Sure.
I mean, you already sent me a video of like the most incredible Cartier Panthère cuff diamond encrusted piece. What has been like some of the more outlandish things that you've seen, and what have been more of the pieces for our core audience that excite you, that you're really excited to share with everybody?
Well, so definitely the Cartier stuff is some of the more kind of like, crazy out there stuff. That's like
Sure.
that's a really great meeting because, what happens is you are in typically a larger group of, in my case, like American English speaking press, and you all kind of like sit around a table and they just like bring you tray after tray after tray of watches. And Cartier makes a lot of watches. They have a lot of SKUs.
Tons. Yeah.
And in addition to kind of the more kind of like mainstream stuff, like your Santoses and your tanks and things like that, they have a lot of like really wild high jewelry pieces that are sometimes unique pieces. I imagine sometimes they're already like pre-sold and you'll just like never see them again. And so that that cuff I sent you, I think, was one of those pieces that was just like mind-blowing to see up close. Really cool. So I'm I may not seem like a big like high jewelry fan on the surface, but like to see that stuff in person is really really special. So
Yeah.
that's always a favorite favorite meeting just for the experience of it. And they did have one of my favorite releases of the show, which is every year they release a heritage model through the Collection Privé series, which is basically kind of like resurfacing a classic reference from the past. And this year they did the Tank à Guichet, which is a like basically a jump hour tank with an aperture at the top of the case for the hour, and below it you have the minutes. There's a really cool one in platinum where those apertures are at like an oblique angle. It's just really, really cool. I have a photo of it on my Instagram. Probably
cool.
like one of the top like 3 or 4 watches of the show for
So
me. For sure.
with that model, I mean, I assume obviously you put it on when you had it in front of you. I mentioned on our Tuesday stream, I'm like, that has to be a watch that you put on your right wrist in order to kind of read it at that strange angle. Is that true, or was it pretty easy to read on your left wrist?
I think it would be easy to read on either wrist, honestly.
Okay.
I don't think it's really I don't think it's really meant for either, one wrist or the other.
Sure.
It's honestly like not really a watch that's meant for,
Most people.
like precision timekeeping. Yeah, I mean they're making 200 of them or something.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a design piece. It's a style piece.
Sure.
It's, not really about like the legibility or ease of time telling. Really.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a really cool piece too, and honestly, we have your Instagram pulled up here behind the scenes. It looks great on your wrist too. Like it fills the wrist nicely without overpowering it, despite the fact that it is a pretty stark, kind of vertically brushed display. It doesn't seem like it overpowers you in any way, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I have a problem where unfortunately the Cartier stuff I like the most is the platinum, platinum stuff. So that's not convenient for me at all.
No, I mean, yeah, for sure, but it just feels different. Man, yeah, the jewelry pieces are incredible. Oh, there's that diamond encrusted Panthère. Very cool cuff.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
What else? What's your take on, the heavy hitters, the Tudor and Rolex releases? What do you think?
So I didn't see the Rolex stuff. Zach and Kat were in the Rolex meeting, and I believe there's a video coming, if not already out, with Zach's reactions to some of the Rolex stuff that he saw. I think the movement is like a pretty incredible accomplishment, and that's the real story in my mind, anyway, because I think it kind of shows you like the path that they're probably taking over the next like decade or so, as they, I'm sure, will work this movement into other watches in their collection. You can imagine what that means for the prices of those watches, and how all of those collections kind of like stack up against. There's a lot of implications there. The movement's like incredibly complicated and hard to like wrap your head around, and we're working on talking to a watchmaker to kind of like explain it in an article for our readers, so we can get a better sense of it. So I think like that might be one of the bigger stories of the show, is that that movement. I'm kind of neutral on like the watches themselves. I think they're, like the Land Dweller's a cool looking watch, but it's not really for me personally. I'm sure it'll be very popular, but the story's really more about the movement, I think.
No, I totally agree. We kind of talked about that whole thing too, where hopefully we see this movement kind of come into other Rolex models. I would love to see a 5 Hertz Submariner, but I mean, then you're talking about a $15,000 to $20,000 Submariner, which I don't know if anyone really wants that. Interesting.
I think it's
from
inevitable
Rolex.
that like that movement will make it into like every watch in the collection. It just kind of seems like the writing's on the wall there.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing about Rolex is they mass produce movements. So, at a very high level, obviously. But so, if they're gonna make one, they might as well make 1,000. If they're gonna make 1,000, they might as well make 10,000. So,
yeah,
it'll happen. Yeah.
Anything? So, again, we don't have a ton of time with Kazan. Do we want to talk a little bit about some of the cool stuff you saw at Time to Watches?
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about time to watch stuff. So actually, my last meeting of the day was with Dennison. We reviewed some Dennison watches on the side. Devin, I know you're a fan of Dennison because they have stone dials, which are your favorite thing in the world.
I've been getting flack for the live stream because I've been talking about some of the cool stone dials. I actually have a couple saved for our stream today to talk about some cool stone dials. But tell me why these new Dennisons are awesome.
Well, I just saw some stuff that's under embargo that I unfortunately can't really talk about. But they're like sorry for the tease. But yeah, I'm excited for what they have to come. I saw all the new Sinn releases. We had a meeting with Sinn, which
Cool.
was great. The new divers in submarine steel are all
Mhm.
great. They kind of like range in like aggressiveness from kind of like like normal size to like big, like extremely water resistant, but like they all wear really well and are very impressively finished, and very very nice. And we had a meeting with Fears, and I saw the new Fears Arnos Pewter Blue, which was really really
Oh, very
nicely
cool.
executed. It looks so much better in person than it does in any photo that I've seen.
Sure.
Not that like the photos are bad or anything, but you really need to see it in person to get a sense of the like the intricate kind of work on the dial and the depth of it. It's very, very nice.
Sure. Now, is it the same case shape that they used for the revival a little while ago, or is this a new case shape altogether?
It's similar, but it's
Okay.
like they talk about like making tweaks to it,
Oh, okay.
and refinements to it. So it's the
That's
same sort
awesome.
of idea, in that it's a rectangular case, obviously, but
Hmm.
the new one I think is a little bit more ergonomic. It has a curved case back, and
Yeah.
to my eye, it looks like it might be finished a little bit better. Although I didn't have a revival in front of me to compare it to,
Sure.
um, but it's very very nice.
That's very cool.
How legible is the time telling on the dial with it being sort of a smaller circle inside of a already narrow rectangular case?
Seemed fine to me. I think if you're if your eyesight's poor, it might be a little bit small, but didn't strike me as too tough to read.
Mm.
In the couple of minutes that I had with it, there's nice contrast between like the blue dial, and the hands are kind of like a stark white, so
Mm.
plenty of contrast there.
I
Yeah.
imagine too there's a lot of texture on the dial surface with the
Hmm.
hobnail and then that kind of the radial graining on the inside there. I imagine this thing just holds light and plays in light like crazy. This has got to be a pretty
Yeah,
flashy piece.
for sure, and that's why it's so really important, I think, to see it in person, and why I was glad I was able to see it in person today, because
Sure.
you can't really get a sense of that in the photos. But yeah, it's very has a very dynamic dial for sure.
Mm.
Very cool.
And the texture on the dial, is that stamped or machined? It's not hand finished.
It's not hand finished. I'm not sure if they're using. I actually I believe it's a CNC machine. I can check on
Okay.
that,
Hmm.
but I believe they're using some sort of CNC process for the dial.
Very
Okay.
cool.
Cool. Not to jump around, but one question I had, we were actually talking about this right before we started. With the new Tudor Black Bay Red,
Oh, sure.
Black Bay
Yeah, yeah.
58 Red, they
Yeah.
came out with the bracelet, the 5 link bracelet. There was some confusion on our show. We thought we just assumed that it would be available on other watches or it would fit the other watches. And then it seems like Tudor confirmed that it will not. Was that something you discussed with them at all by any chance? Like, can you confirm that that bracelet will not fit the existing Black Bay 58 cases?
We didn't discuss that specifically, but I do understand that the case is like just very subtly different than the earlier Black Bay 58. We didn't get into
Hmm.
like too much detail on what those differences were. Like to my eye, like you see the watch immediately registers as a Black Bay 58. Like it's
Yeah.
not a dramatically different case. But if they did make small tweaks to it and changes to it, it would make sense that the bracelet wouldn't fit.
Yeah, I saw there was an Instagram comment from Tudor's official Instagram account that said that it would not fit, but and I could be wrong on this. I seem to remember them doing a similar thing with the Black Bay Chrono, saying that the 5 link wouldn't fit, and then people put it on there and it did fit. So who knows? I mean, obviously, don't go out and buy one and hope that it fits. After seeing Tudor said no, it doesn't.
Hmm.
But who knows? Some people might be a little bit more adventurous and liberal with their pocketbook than I.
Um,
Something that they reinforced in the meeting with us is that they seem really committed to making sure that like every watch has every like option for it eventually. That's why they
Okay.
released the new Black Bay chronographs with the 5 link
Yeah.
bracelet. So like now you can get the bracelet for that watch, the 5 link for the chronograph,
Right.
separately. You can order it directly from Tudor. So I imagine
Oh,
at
good.
some
Okay.
point you'll be able to get a 5 link bracelet for your like the first Black Bay 58.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the one that comes on the Burgundy model. So
Yeah.
they do seem pretty committed to making sure that like eventually every watch has T-fit, every watch has all the bracelet options and so forth. So and Meta certification, of course. So
Yeah.
that's something that they reinforce multiple times in the meeting, and it's reflected in the watches themselves, I think, too, which are, you know, iterative but sort of like plug holes, you know, where there were holes in the collection before.
Yeah. Solid lineup. A wall of black bays.
The Black Bay 68, is it as absurdly large as one might think, or is it does it work?
It's too big for me. Like it's a bigger watch than I would want to wear. But you know, again, like to their point, like they got feedback from their customers, and I imagine from authorized dealers who they work with, that people wanted a larger black bay, and so that's the reason for that watch. So
Awesome.
They're giving the people what they want.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we can ask for. That's what we've been screaming for brands to do for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as brands do it, we all kind of complain that it's not crazy enough. So it's good to see that they're kind of keeping that up. I saw too the standard Black Bay family, like the no dive bezel version. They changed the name on it. So if you go up to the menu here too, they also changed that model family. What's it under now? I can't remember. I'm actually blanking on what the name was. Black Bay 1. So the dive bezel-less Black Bay is now the Black Bay 1 to try and avoid naming confusion, which thank God they did that, because to say the Black Bay, you were talking about this watch and a whole host of other watches. So just again, refining the collection a bit.
I'm glad they avoided confusion by changing the name without telling anyone about it.
Yeah. Or like putting it on the front of the website. You have to go looking for it.
Yeah. I have to. I feel like we should talk a little bit more about Sinn. Sinn being such a worn and wound staple.
Yeah.
It would be great to. Apparently, the internet thinks that we're in Germany.
Their website defaults to Germany every time. As a frequent visitor, I can tell you, it always defaults to Germany. So, speaking of Sinn, though, so like last year we saw the U50 Hydra, the oil-filled U50, which was kind of mind-blowing for a lot of us. It was a display that was really interesting. At any angle, it was very legible. I think we were all hoping to see some huge releases this year as well, or at least one huge release. And Sinn was very quiet leading up to the show. They showed us the new divers with kind of the bubble dial, but that's all they really showed us leading up to the show. And obviously none of us had hands on.
Also.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there was the UTC chronograph is a pretty big release for them. The other watches that they showed us were, so there's the bronze gold dive watch as well, which is very, very nice.
Yeah.
And I was also very impressed by their I'm drawing a blank on the name of the watch itself, but it's a smaller watch. It's made for kind of like aimed at the ladies market.
Yes,
the mother of pearl dials,
so
and these
cool.
really cool bezels that have this like crazy facet pattern on them. So they brought those out, and they're really, really nice in person. And they showed us to them with like different straps on them, like in different colors. And if you put like a dark strap, you know, on especially like the dark mother of pearl watch, like that's just like a nice dress watch that anyone can wear, not, you know, gender specific at all. So I was very impressed with those. They're just very, very nicely done.
Very cool. Yeah, I saw the dark mother of pearl pop up on Instagram. They've been teasing these for a little while, so I think it was like a week or two ago, or maybe a little longer, that I saw these pop up. And that dark mother of pearl with that really kind of shiny faceted bezel, it stopped me scrolling. I think this is a gorgeous looking watch. Really cool use of mother of pearl too, and I always love seeing like the black mother of pearl as an option out there. So very, very cool. I'm glad to hear that they played that well in person too.
Yeah, they're very, very good. Very good.
That's cool.
Yeah, those are sweet watches.
And then you had New Frankfurt watches, which no one in the United States seems to care about ever.
Yeah,
that's Sinn. The 613s are cool though. They're the new chronographs.
Yes, yeah, no, those are very nice. I mean, I prefer the divers. They kind of asked us like which ones we like at the end of the meeting, and I immediately like the divers are for me, and Zach was a fan of the chronographs, and Kat liked the little the mother of pearl dials. So
something for everyone. But
yeah, exactly, something for everyone. Give the people what they want. Variety. That's all we can ask for.
It's the spice of life, some people say.
Yeah.
I feel like we're probably coming up on when you have to jump. Is there like a favorite of the show that you want to dig into that we didn't get a chance to talk to? Anything that really struck you?
Favorite of the show, so the thing that like I keep coming back to is the honey gold Odysseus,
Cool.
the A. Lange and Son Odysseus. Like I was just really impressed by that. Just like a beautiful object. It's just like so much gold, incredibly well finished. I'm not even really like a big Odysseus fan, like per se, but like that watch is just like very, just like very very special. They also released a kind of like as they do every year, sort of like a super watch. It's a perpetual calendar, minute repeater. I think there's another complication in there. I'm drawing a blank. Sorry, very tired. But lots of watches running around in my head. But that was also incredibly cool. Those are just things that like you're just not likely to see outside of an event like this.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of fun to kind of like spend some time with those and to like really get hands on, which we did. We had a really good meeting with Lange this year, and they gave us plenty of opportunity to kind of get as many photos as we needed and play with the watches. So that was cool. Trying to think of other things that really stood out. The new Czapek tourbillon I really liked a lot. The Tank à Guichet, which I mentioned. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of iterative stuff this year, but they were kind of like there were gems kind of like mixed in.
Yeah.
I gotta say today was really dominated by discussion of the tariffs, which were announced, I guess, yesterday. Like that was all anyone was really discussing today. It's a pretty big story. We're working on some coverage of that. Coming very soon. So yeah, interesting week in Geneva.
So is everyone excited for the American economy to come roaring back? Is that the prevailing talking point?
Yeah,
because that's what happened, right?
We all bought perpetual Langes right afterwards.
Yeah. Because my portfolio just shot through the roof this morning. That was really awesome.
Yeah, they're playing 3D chess. I think is the term. Is what they're doing. That's what's
sick.
Here.
Yeah, I have to say that I enjoyed for the previous 4 years not being mocked every time I talked to somebody who was from outside the United States, so far the Trump administration is really making the previous one look like child's play. So I can only imagine the mockery that you're having to deal with.
At least we're only 2 months in.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, cool. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to keep you forever. I realize you got to get on a shuttle. Unless you want to take us on the shuttle.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to go on that shuttle, my man. It is not. It's cutthroat. They get very crowded. So it's
One time I was on
I will not be.
One time I was on a tram in Basel with Zach, and like these like teenage Swiss kids were just like, "We are American." Like they were making fun of us.
That sounds about right.
It was pretty awesome. I missed those days. Yeah.
Good.
Any other parting questions, Devin? I don't want to.
No, I mean, I'm gonna pick your brain as soon as you get back here. I'll let you get after it and wrap up your night here. But there are so many things that I want to talk to you about. A lot of new watches that I want to throw my hat in to talk with you about as well. But I think we can leave it there and let you get on that bus. Hopefully you don't miss it.
I mean, they've got a bunch of them. If I miss one, I'll catch the next. But it's good to talk to you guys. I'm looking forward to getting back and kind of like writing up a lot of these watches that we saw. We got so much good coverage and so many good. Kat's been taking so many great photos.
Yeah.
And, so we'll have a lot of good like hands-on coverage in the next week or so of watches that we saw. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about, even in a show with a lot of like iterative releases. I think we found the cool ones.
Enough to dig into for sure. And like you mentioned, tons of stuff coming out on the website. So make sure that you're following along on there, because we do have the photography, we've got the articles coming. I've been kind of reading some of the behind the scenes stuff too, and I'm really excited for everyone else to get their hands on it. So keep up with that.
And just want to say great work by the team, by the 101 team, and great work by all the editorial teams that are out there in Switzerland. You know what I mean? Always good to pump up your own team, but it's always good to give credit to everybody who's out there grinding away, making great content. So
we do the best we can. It's it's a tough job, but somebody's gotta do it without the little sandwiches even. So
It's a rough year for everybody.
Yeah. We're all struggling.
Yeah.
We're all struggling.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Zach. It was great talking to you, and we will see you soon, hopefully in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
See you, Zach.
See ya.
Bye.
We should also mention too the team on the ground in Geneva did record a live podcast in Geneva. I shouldn't say live, but they recorded a podcast in Geneva, which will be dropping soon. So if you want their delirious takes from a late night podcast recording, that is coming up very quickly as well.
It's almost unfair to make them do a podcast. I guess no one makes them.
Nobody
it's their
made them.
choice,
We
but,
actually
like,
actively told them that this could take the place of the podcast, and they decided that our live stream sucked enough they needed to make a podcast.
I was going to say, what does that say about us that they're just like, no, it's okay, guys. Even though
got this.
all we want to do is sleep
Yeah.
and maybe eat a little bit, we're good.
Yeah.
Sean Martin's asking when do folks from our team get back to the United States? Not for a very long time.
Yeah. We have a couple of people staying on the ground for some additional coverage, which you'll see rolling out as well. Some pretty cool behind the scenes stuff and some really cool big projects in the work too. It's not just editorial pieces and video pieces, but we've got some really big stuff coming.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that as well.
Yeah, and can't wait to hear Zach's takes on the tariffs.
I know. Yeah, I knew we were getting into a tangent there, and I'm sitting there like, oh no.
You know what? Whatever.
Yeah.
Politics aside, I'll go to the mat.
This is a perfect time. That's fine. This is a perfect time. I'm actually
care.
going to interject here with the tariffs. I'm dropping discount codes for the Wind Up Watch Shop into our chat right now. So I've got 2 different codes for the people who joined us live, and if you're watching this after the fact, these are going to be good for the next week. But this is, I guess, this is how we counteract tariffs is by offering you off 10% off of select items from the shop, and then 25% off of our house strap systems in there. So there's a code in there, good for 1 per person. I'm going to pin them in the chat so you can all grab those and use them at your leisure in the Wind Up Watch app.
Yeah, I'm going to have those on the screen too for a little while.
Cool.
You know, if you like what we do and you want to support us through these tough times, you can go to the shop and buy stuff.
I think more than anything, if you've been looking at perpetual calendars and you know you can't afford one, you can probably afford a new strap to make your old watch feel new again. You can probably afford a new watch, and hopefully this helps you out a little bit.
It's true. It's true.
I'm in that camp of seeing all the new releases and now kind of jumping at the bit to go buy something. So you'll probably see a liquidation of my collection at some point.
Yeah, that's a good question actually. Before we get into the additional news, what are you lusting after? What's the watch that you really want to pick up?
The things I can't pick up. The big thing is that Reverso on the Milanese bracelet. Like, I can't afford a $50,000 watch, but I would legitimately mortgage a house for that watch. It's it feels so special. I've already sent JLC an email saying like, hey, if you get a sample of this, you have to let me know.
Yeah.
That is the big one. Honestly, after that, there's a whole bunch of things that are really exciting, which we're going to get into some of them today too. But that is like the one piece that I cannot stop thinking about.
Yeah. This might be a shock, but I'm like really can't get that NOMOS World Timer out of my head in some of those
awesome.
colors.
I love that because you were dunking on it when we saw just the first 2.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We were talking about this before we went on air, but like Zach Weiss posted an Instagram video of his thoughts on those watches, and like we hadn't chatted about this, but his feelings are very similar to mine. Just that like in seeing those first few come through in press releases, it was a little bit underwhelming.
Sure.
And then seeing them with the colors, it's just like it makes so much more sense to me. And like the one thing I'll say is seeing them in the videos that we had with like wrist rolls and stuff like that, there's a lot of polish.
Tons.
Like the center link on that bracelet is heavily polished.
We didn't look at the clasp either. So one thing, I had a NOMOS Club Sport Neomatic for a little while, and the clasp on it, it's a fold over clasp, but the entire actual clasp top surface is polished. That thing held scratches like nothing else I've ever owned. And the NOMOS watches, like, they toe that line of being dressy and sporty, but when you have that much polishing, it really leans more into the dressy side of things. But when it holds all the scratches, it tends to kind of, I don't want to say diminish the visuals a little bit, but it doesn't feel as dressy at that point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would also love to see like this watch on, again, like I think that like on the right strap, like almost maybe like a canvas. Like
I'd put this on suede. Yeah. I think it would look really cool on suede.
I feel like you could like the green in particular, but like you could get real like strong safari vibes on like a canvas strap
or like a bund strap.
Yeah,
just like
no,
thick
I think those
leather,
will look super cool.
Just a big old chunker.
Yeah, love a chunky boy.
Oh.
But yeah, I can't. These are really sticking out in my mind.
Yeah, they're
as
super
something
cool.
I kind of like. And I'm a sucker for like olive. It's a problem. But again,
totally
I
is.
also don't have like $4,700 to spend on.
These look like very worn and wound watches. I mean, if you like our Ellies and a lot of the watches that we collaborate on,
Oh yeah.
this kind of fits into our core ethos as a brand too.
Yeah.
Also, big shout out to Steve in our comment section here. He got his Batman a month ago.
Oh, sick.
So like that's pretty cool. So I mean, hopefully you're not lusting after anything, but if you are lusting after anything, you've got a nice bargaining chip.
Yeah. But I think like we're looking at some of these photos online, and like, again, I think this is where getting that hands-on content is so important, because I think from this photo you can obviously tell that there are polished surfaces on here, but I don't think at all like truly characterizes how polished some of this stuff is. So if I go to Instagram. And you can tell I like going to the brew page because
the brew page. He's always talking about the brew.
It's the
Instagram
default.
page.
What's the best way for me to get to more know-how? I'm just gonna do one of these little things. We have a video from Zach here.
Yeah.
Zach Weiss with Hands On, and boy oh boy, does this look a lot more polished in this video?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very very shiny.
Yeah, so it's like. I don't know how I feel about that necessarily, but
yeah.
If we get a chance to get these in the office, I'm definitely going to
sure
spend some time with them. Yeah, look at that.
We'll
That is blingy,
soon.
but
Hopefully
also
we'll
really cool.
Soon.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the watch that I can't get out of my head.
Yeah. Super fun.
All right, so you're in the driver's seat now, Devin.
Okay.
It was your job to tell me what to click on.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and exit out of the Zen website. We're not going to go back to that now because we've already talked about it.
Oh,
Let's
wow.
jump into Grand Seiko because I think this is the big one that we didn't really get into yesterday.
Sure.
So obviously we saw a handful of watches. It wasn't this huge release year from Grand Seiko, but we saw some pretty funky things, some pretty impressive things, and a new core collection watch too, which I think it's 36 millimeter in lavender, pretty cool watch. But that one aside, because that is a bit more of a standard release for them, let's talk about the UFA for just a moment here.
All right, cool.
Two different references in the SLBG line. So there's the 001, and then we have the 003. Like last year where the 001 was a precious metal, again, we have 001 being precious, this time in platinum. And then the 003 is the one that's going to be coming in titanium. Big news with these here. There are two features that I think everyone has been really kind of honing in on. One being a clasp with micro adjust. So we finally have Grand Seiko with micro adjust in the bracelet. Very, very cool. And then the other one being the UFA movement on the inside. So this movement, spring drive movement, they move the spring drive from the dial side to that movement side. And instead of being plus or minus 15 seconds per month, it is now plus or minus 20 seconds per year, which is just incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's Grand Seiko is known for their accuracy. People applaud them for that. For them to take their high level of accuracy and then just say, well, that's not good enough. And instead of going to like plus or minus 5 seconds a month, plus or minus 20 a year is just insane. It's absolutely insane and just such a cool piece of kit to be coming out of Grand Seiko. And then two, $10,900 is not a small asking price. But when you consider the other watches in the collection, their high beats frequencies that are coming in the titanium case with titanium bracelet, coming in at a 10.9 is pretty impressive, in my opinion, for a brand new movement, for that micro adjust clasp. Actually, a kind of redefined and highly polished case too. Overall, just a really great form factor that fits well on the wrist. If you saw our video, we put out a video on this, I think it was Monday night. That was actually on my wrist in the office here. So I have a 7.67 inch wrist roughly.
The specificity of your wrist measurement is a little intimidating.
People need to know. But like the 37 typically, again, looks a little bit small on my wrist. I talked about that with the IWC. This watch looked fantastic on me.
Yeah.
A little bit on the small side, obviously, because it's refined proportions and the mix of brushing and polishing kind of makes the facets shrink it a little bit. But yeah, just a fantastic watch. Has a really cool dial texture to it too, which I understand is not for everybody. That dial texture is definitely a little iffy for some people. They don't like the repetitive nature of it, even though if you really look, it does have a lot of variation in there. But I did see quite a few people saying like, oh, I'll wait for the next dial color and texture to come out. But man, what a cool drop from them.
Yeah.
And to do it in platinum too is just an extra level of cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's very Grand Seiko to sort of take, again, like on the accuracy measurement, something that is already. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Wow, amateur hour.
And
to take something that is like already at a very high level and take it even a notch higher.
Yeah.
We actually were nice enough to get a visit from Joe Kirk of Grand Seiko fame and employment, really more specifically. And he came in and he was able to sit down with Zach pre-Watches and Wonders and give us a look at their watches, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And so we've got this in-depth conversation between Zach and Joe on the site live now, which is really awesome. Joe's amazing. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard him speak about Grand Seiko before, but it's he's literally an encyclopedia.
Yeah. I mean, he's the guy that a lot of us learned about Grand Seiko from. He's the guy who was in the forums early on. He was the guy kind of championing the brand. That's why he's in the position that he's in. So he has that backlog of knowledge that I think a lot of people don't, who are somewhat new to Grand Seiko. But even those of us who have known about Grand Seiko for a long time pale in comparison when it comes to historical knowledge and obviously active working knowledge, because he gets to dive into it a little bit deeper than most of us.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, super impressive. I mean, those pieces, I like famously am one of the few Worn and Wound team members who have never owned a Grand Seiko. I've been very Grand Seiko curious over the years. And, I think that the price is creeping up is something that's maybe prevented me personally from picking one up.
Sure.
Despite what you may think, us people in the watch industry are not just
That's
like
a gorgeous wrist on screen. I just have to,
aren't rolling in dough, but like, you're getting into the territory of like, that's a lot of money to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a tough, that's like your one watch for the year kind of thing for, if at all.
That's kind of what they're doing, though, is the Grand Seiko likes to offer you a piece that can be sporty, it can be dressy, it can be a one-watch collection, or one watch for the year, however you want to look at it. So I think they're doing a really good job of that, for sure. Prices are creeping up. Prices are creeping up on everything. I think that's why we've seen the Citizen kind of slide in and get a lot of the spotlight, because they're coming in at that former Grand Seiko price point and still offering some pretty competitive pieces.
Yeah.
But by no means is this not worth it. Like, the stuff that Grand Seiko is putting out is still incredible.
Well, I just threw a comment up on the screen. Sean Martin, friend of Worn and Wound, he wrote, I'm actually not offended at the SLGB003 price. The thing with also that I think it's important to keep in mind, I know I just sort of like bemoaned price increases, but like, I think Grand Seiko for so long was like this darling brand of watch journalists. Again, not to keep talking about Basel, but I remember like going to Basel, and like the minute you start sort of like hobnobbing with other watch journalists, like the brand du jour was always Grand Seiko. It was the brand that people went and sort of like ogled at before Grand Seiko was quite as sort of like relevant or, cool with the watch community.
Yeah.
And I think part of what kind of made them this gem was that they were relatively affordable compared to what you were getting. So it's not that the price increases aren't warranted. I mean, what they're doing with across the board, dial finishing, the artistry that goes into it, case finishing, movement manufacturing. I mean, all of it, it's like, it's worth the money. Yeah, for sure. But it's also worth noting that seems like prices have gone up a little bit, but no, these watches are like really spectacular. And this is definitely a watch that I would be curious about. Yeah. It's on the list.
He said it's the watch to know. The watch to keep an eye out, or however he phrased that.
Yeah, and Zach is a pretty notable figure in the watch community. He's like a bit of a tastemaker, He's a pretty cool guy, so no big deal. I will. Okay, while we're on the topic of hot takes, and I'd love to see if people have any feelings about this in the comments. As someone who's been curious about Grand Seiko, one thing that I will say that drives me crazy is the naming convention.
It is
impenetrable.
Yeah.
Like, to be someone who wants to get into the brand and just have to be able to follow like the SLBG, the alphanumeric naming system. It's so hard for someone trying to get into it.
It is. You have to learn the whole back, like the case shape refers to the actual letters, and it's very convoluted for sure, and it is a barrier to entry. And so I think that's why you see people kind of bouncing off of it a little bit. But I also think too that's why journalists went to it, because if you wanted to learn about models, you had to follow journalists who were covering it. This wasn't like an easily Googleable brand for a very long time. You needed to listen to somebody who knew what was going on. But yeah, those the names are tough. They're really tough. That's why they all have nicknames now too.
Yeah. No, I really wish brands would like lean into those nicknames a little bit more sometimes. Yeah, Chris agrees with my take. Chris, new best friend.
He
Chris.
loves names. Yeah.
He agrees. Yeah, the micro adjust is really cool.
There's that micro adjust. I will admit the micro adjust, frankly, it's a little hard to use. It's not like the easiest push button system. So I had to, and you can actually see it in that video we put up on Instagram again. I'm using it and Zach Weiss is using it in that video, but to get your hand in there, you kind of have to, there's like that square portion towards the bottom of it that has that like little oblong shape. You have to kind of like get in there and push that in order to slide it up and down. So it takes a minute to figure it out. Once you figure it out, it's not too bad. But initially when you're trying to actually ratchet that bracelet up and down, it's a little bit difficult. It's not this easy single button or T-fit system. As with all things Grand Seiko, this will be refined and refined and refined until it's like probably the class leading micro adjust on the market. But for right now, like, boy, am I happy to just see it out there. You get almost a full link of adjustment too. I think it was like 6 millimeters or something like that you get in travel.
That's cool.
Which is pretty incredible for a micro adjust. Really just a good fit on the fly. And in doing so, you are not exposing a gap, which is the thing that drives me nuts with micro adjusts out there, where you fully extend it and now you have a gap between the bottom link and the actual clasp.
And it's just like a piece of metal or something.
Or like a thin little strip on the inside or whatever. I hate that. It drives me nuts. I think it's really ugly to look at. With this one here, it just extends. It shows you that bottom link and it looks fine.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I mean, I am a huge bracelet person. So one, it's really cool to see all the like micro adjusts coming out, but I was actually like, shower thoughts. I was thinking about this the other day, like if I ever started my own watch company, which I'm not going to do.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Blake Watch. Like I think that I would almost make a watch where the bracelet was more the story than the watch. Like
that's been Watches and Wonders this year. The 1908, the JLC, like the bracelets have been a talking point this year.
It's great. I mean, because it's like a great bracelet can, like, in my opinion, like really make or break, and especially with like the price that goes into a bracelet, the price difference. Like I really want it to be something special, you know. And again, especially when you're talking about like a brand like Grand Seiko or Omega, or like some of these brands that are kind of like not playing catch up, but like are evolving their bracelets. Like the bracelet that comes on the Speedmaster as of like whatever it was when the new Speedy form factor came out, or the new Speedy came out, like that's where these higher end brands need to be. They need to be making bracelets of that quality.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
It's good to see them stepping up a little bit.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Don't worry about that.
Oh, it's okay. We're live, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, great stuff from Grand Seiko. I know there's a few other pieces that they came out with.
Yes. So if we can jump over to the new, so 2 new tentographs technically. Actually, could you jump to the other one quickly before we get into this crazy Tokyo line? So this is just a dial color evolution of the Tentograph SLGC 007. It's strange in these photos here that it looks very white on the dial. In handling it myself, I thought that the dial kind of absorbed the color of the room. So it was pretty cool when we were underneath fluorescent lighting. It was really holding a lot of browns and warm hues in that dial texture, because it has that like fine lion's mane texture, whatever you want to call it. But then when we were in the photo studio and working under cooler light, it was holding a lot of blues, a lot of pale colors. So really kind of a shifty dial, but it has this gorgeous silver luster to it all the time. Overall, just really cool iteration. Still a little bit chunky, still a little bit hard to wear because of its size, but a really great piece. High beats chronograph, modular movement, of course, but I think a really cool addition to the lineup. We did hear too from Joe, this is a nice little side story, that when they were originally developing the Tentograph, this is the color configuration that they wanted the first Tentograph to be. So this was supposed to be the first one, but the person who was designing it, who wanted that kind of white and black that dial, he got shot down. They went for the blue that we saw released, and now he finally got to see this come out and be on the market. So a cool little side story there to note. But otherwise, just a new dial color. The real story comes from the next one here, the SLGC 009 Tokyo Lion monster. I don't even know what to call this thing. I called it refined aggression because it is just like whoever designed this was like furiously drawing this with a pencil in the bathroom and then decided to make it with a whole bunch of facets. Incredibly hard to make, incredibly difficult to actually get all of those facets in there, because if you look, you've got vertical brushing that matches up pretty well on those facets, but those facets are not the same angle. So to get in there and get the vertical brushing on both of them is difficult. Have that fine line between them. There's polishing, there's satin, just crazy when it comes to texture, surface, angles.
And that dial is just like
wild. Yeah. The pushers are you have they're like moon shoe pushers. The ridges catch the finger really nicely.
Like little dishes sitting on the dial.
Oh, the sub registers, just like super cool. The loom is actually really cool on this one. I snagged a loom shot for myself, but I didn't post it anywhere, so you don't get to see that right now. But yeah, just a really cool watch. It has the paw print on the rubber on the inside that Zach Weiss liked quite a bit. This is actually a cool angle to show too, because it shows you that little bit of scoop that you have on the case back there. So make no mistake about it. This thing's a monster, right? It's enormous, wild, just crazy to look at. But then you put it on the wrist and you're like, oh, wait a minute. This thing actually doesn't wear all that bad. We made a short reel about this watch as well. It's up on our Instagram. You can go check that out if you want to. And you can see it on my wrist. Thankfully, my wrist actually dwarfs this watch. It doesn't dwarf the watch, but it's more proportionate.
You're manly. We all know.
Yeah. A lot of hair. But yeah, it fits this watch pretty well.
Yeah.
But even on it's a statement piece through and through. Just such a cool watch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I think like Zach Weiss definitely tends to like watches that are a little bit more like svelte. And I think not that like larger watches are a deal breaker or anything for him, but it's just not often that he sees in my experience that he sees like a larger watch like this and sort of like gets super jazzed about it. But he was like immediately like really taken with this watch. It's very cool. It's very cool in photos and in person.
Zach Weiss and I'm not saying that we disagree on a lot of watches out there, but he tends to be more of like the refined classical watch taste or the very colorful. And I tend to find myself living in between those two stances. Yeah. So it's very odd for us to see such a unique and crazy design and both of us to immediately kind of love it. Yeah. So it was really cool for the two of us to sit there and kind of nerd out about it and dig into this watch, because it is just such a strange piece. Because also too, like Grand Seiko, we're used to seeing refined classic tastes from Grand Seiko. Their refinements are in the millimeters. They really just want to make sure that they nail all the fine points, and then boom, this thing explodes onto the screen. And when Joe pulled it out of his watch case here, it was like, what is that? Is that a Hublot? Is that, where is that coming from? Yeah. Such a cool.
No, it's super cool. I think I've learned since you joined the team that like you have very specific opinions, very strong opinions
about the weirdest, dumbest things.
Well, you're not the person to come up to and be like, hey, do you know this brand? Because your response will be like, oh yeah, they suck. And then I'll be like, oh, I just got one.
I'll tell you the same thing too. If you lead with, oh, I just got it, I will tell you the exact same thing.
Yeah, no, it's
not afraid of it. Yeah, that's you'll hear my take. It's odd that I land on the same spectrum as anyone else on our team with half of these watches. So very cool.
Where do we want to go next?
Let's go to Bremont. Let's do this. Let's give Bremont some love. We've dunked on them. The community, the enthusiast community as a whole, has dunked on Bremont. It should actually be up to the right a little bit further. I pulled these up sequentially, so you could just kind of, go.
You know what? I'm new to this.
Four more to the right.
I'm a pretty busy guy.
One more.
One more?
Yep. There you go. WarnandWound.com. We have a full story about the new Bremont debut watches here. The community as a whole, I think, dunked on Bremont pretty hard when they did that sharp left turn away from what many of us thought made the brand great. I didn't like the old logo. Many of us didn't like the old logo, but at least it was unique and it was them. And then they changed it to this new one, which seems a little bit AI derivative. And then their designs got kind of simplified and it wasn't quite as bold. And most of us just kind of went, okay, cool, we're done with Bremont. But then this year at Watches and Wonders, I think we saw kind of where the brand is actually headed. You look at this piece here, right? Dual crowns, really funky knurling on the case side. You see the lugs kind of start from nothing and then get chunkier as they go down. It's not quite exactly that way when you look at it from the underside. That's just the side profile because that knurling on the case side kind of cuts into the lug and gives it that kind of cool dimensionality. Very, very odd kind of striped counterbalance on the second sand. Overall, just honestly, I think a really cool design. I still don't like this bracelet at all. The bracelet to me is just not quite the right fit. But the watch itself, very cool looking. And you see that with the rest of this three watch collection here. It's funky in certain areas, but refined in others. And in my opinion, a pretty cool trio to come out from the brand.
Yeah.
And a really good follow-up to a lot of us saying that the first designs were just way too generic. I don't think that these are the craziest, boldest designs that they could have possibly put out there. But talk about a step back in the right direction after a lot of us, again, 1 year ago, sat next to each other, sat across from each other, and just were like, what are they doing?
Yeah. I mean, this feels much more like an evolution of what the brand was previously. And I think that, you still have the new logo, which, again, I think is not to the taste of a bunch of people. But, again, I think a lot of people will get used to it.
Sure.
But, like, within the context of these watches that I think, again, speaks a little bit more to the heritage of Bremont, like, it's a lot less noticeable or...
Yeah.
I don't know, it just kind of doesn't hit you over the head. It's not just a part of the long list of things that you want to kind of gripe about.
Sure.
I mean, especially the dual crown model, I find like particularly interesting and appealing.
I think that's the one out of the three.
Yeah.
That like really stands out to me.
Yeah, I do like the I know a lot of people complain about distortion along the edge of a crystal when there's sort of like the bend in the crystal. I kind of love that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if it becomes illegible, that's a problem. But like, I think it just adds like a sort of texture. And,
I love it. It's romance.
Yeah, it's just something a little different. So I think it's cool that they came out with like a GMT chronograph instead of just a regular chronograph.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like pricing is like $4,250. The chronograph gets up to $6,600, which
to be fair, like the prices are high for Le Jouperet movements. If you want to base this solely off of specifications, the prices are higher than competitors out there. Sure. But here you're not just buying we never just buy specifications. If you're trying to buy specifications, your price point's really $500 and under because that's where you're going to find the most value.
Mm-hmm.
But these watches are giving you just a bit more on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see myself owning one of these for sure, but I'm really excited to see one in the wild. And like the first person I see, I'm going to run up to them and ask them a whole bunch about it. Yeah. And honestly, I'm going to ask about who the person is too, because they probably weren't paying attention to Bremont up until this point. They probably don't know the history of Bremont up until this point. This is just a cool watch that they saw in the AD while they're walking downtown. And they decided to pick one up because they wanted a kind of sporty adventure watch that they can still wear to the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I know. See, it says that it's 42 millimeters. I wonder how tall it is. I'm trying to find the specifics.
You have to go to the tech spec. Yeah. It's they're very strange with how they do their movements and stuff.
12.23. That's not so.
That's actually pretty good for a dual crown.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by the bracelet. I know you said it's not your favorite.
It's not. And we can jump into the next one now because the bracelets on the new Bremonts are, in my opinion, not the best. So I handled them in London for British Watchmakers Day, especially the new Terra Nova. And to me, it felt like the bracelet didn't quite match the case. It felt like a bit of an afterthought. It has like kind of this like curved lug visual that to me doesn't suit the rugged purpose of it. And to me almost feels like it was a design from another watch that they now throw on all of their watches.
You're talking about like where the end link meets the case here, this curve? Or?
The whole thing. Like if you look at the watch from the top down, it kind of has this like this curved visual in the bracelet altogether. So you see like it kind of feels like it's scooping a little bit. And to me that just doesn't quite match it. But I also think too that these are watches you're going to immediately throw on a nylon strap. Because I think they would look better on a nylon strap or a leather even. Yeah. Not necessarily on this bracelet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think play devil's advocate or just to disagree. Sure. I think that I kind of like that they went in a different direction with the bracelet. I think these watches on like a very traditional like 5-link bracelet would have felt like a lot more generic and safe. Whereas this at least feels like, if you're going to be paying, for almost 5,000 pounds or 4,600 US, like you're getting something that feels fully custom, which is cool.
But it is the same bracelet on all three models.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Actually, can you switch to our next tab now? Because we can talk about still another Bremont watch, one more. And this is the new Terra Nova Jump Hour.
Yes.
So this is really the watch, this one. And then there's a bronze option too, which is limited and all of that kind of stuff. These are the watches that people seem to be really talking about from Bremont. We are joking that it's the year of the bracelet, the year of the jump hour, the year of the loom block. But we saw a whole bunch of jump hours get released this year. And this seems to be the one that not as many people are talking about right now, but I think eventually once the news cycle kind of catches up and people catch up on their backlog of reading, that this is a model that's really going to stand out. At $4,000, it's not the lowest price point for a jump hour, but it's definitely not the highest. I think visually it's actually pretty awesome looking. The logo works a little bit better here, in my opinion. I don't know. There's just something about it where it's not the most minimal, it's not the most symmetrical, but because of that, it's a little bit more pleasing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like the design. It feels, still sporty and rugged, but like maybe a little bit more sort of refined, just like the shape of the case. I kind of wish that the dial had a lot less going on. Like you have these like really bold, well, one, like, just the design of a jump hour in and of itself is like very bold because it's stark, but for the jump hour and what have you. And then you have this, like the outer track for the minutes. It's just like it feels very kind of like, I don't know, like very typographical. I don't know. It's like very very blocky, very kind of industrial in a certain way.
Very geometric on the outside.
Yeah. And I almost like, do you need jumping hour in London there? Could it just say Terra Nova? Or, could you even remove the logo? Like, I don't know, just like that like if that dial were bare, but for just the time telling or maybe like a little bit more writing on the dial, like I think it could have been like a bit more striking.
Yeah, it's similar to, I mean, we saw Maine just released a jump hour. We were talking about the Cartier a little while ago. And actually, if you switch over to the limited edition that they dropped as well, I don't think I pulled the tab for you on that one. I apologize.
Amateur hour.
I know, I was doing so good up until this point. Wow, it's a little harder to get to. They also don't like feature it on the homepage, which again is kind of strange to me. I feel like that's the watch they really should be hammering home.
These watches come in a silver dial too. Who knew?
That's cool.
They're
Again, yeah, like why are you not advertising that on the homepage? Why is it buried?
And it looks really cool on a nylon strap.
See, there it is on the nylon. It looks great on the nylon, I think. There it is. There's the Cupro aluminum bronze.
Yeah.
Which is like very vintage compass styled.
Yeah.
Which is kind of awesome.
But do you see how it's just Bremont? And then I guess they still have the...
But the
compass,
logo, if you click through, the logo is actually recessed. It's a cutout on the dial as well. It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
There it is. It's a little aperture in there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But like I think that's...
Oh, that's a is it? Oh, obviously. Okay, so that's the running time on the center there.
Like the running seconds.
Yeah.
It's running, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like this is a good example. Like I think still could have done with some less of the... less text, especially having text under the triangle there pointing to the minutes feels like that's the Terra Nova. It's a little bit like labeled.
Yeah.
But like I like that they don't have, it's more subtle, or like maybe even if they had done a similar thing and tried to work in the compass logo in a more sort of like subtle way on the other watch. But but yeah, these are cool. I mean, I think
they're pretty fun.
Yeah, no, totally.
38 millimeters. Again, this will age really cool too. So like as this kind of picks up age and wear, the brushing, both vertical and radial, will have different wear, and then you have the polishing in between to kind of break it up. So this will age in a really interesting way that I'm excited to see. Now it's an aluminum and bronze mixture, so you probably won't see a ton of aging, at least for a very long time. But overall, I think that's going to be a really cool one in the long run. But we can jump off of Bremont because we've got a lot of watches to get to.
Hell yeah.
And let's reach for the stars with Zenith on these next three. So we saw three Zenith 160th anniversary models. There was a fourth model coming out to celebrate the revitalization of a movement from their archive. But quite frankly, at like $100 and whatever thousand, I didn't think it was necessarily worth diving into because it's a bit of a deeper story. So if you're interested in that, check out, we actually have an article on Worn and Wound. You can go ahead and check out that article. But otherwise, we can just kind of focus on these blue ceramic 160th anniversary editions. So we saw Skyline chronograph, we saw the Pilot Flyback chronograph, and we saw a Chronomaster Sport, all in blue ceramic, very similar in, I don't know, kind of richness to the green ceramic that we saw from Zenith not too long ago, a color I was actually a huge fan of. This blue is vibrant. I've been hearing everyone call it just Smurf. These are Smurf watches right here. I should have all three of them for you to kind of cycle through too, or at least two, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, like that is a bold watch on there. And we do have, in our article about these on Worn and Wound, we do have live photos that Garrett took inside of the studio, so you can actually see how the blue looks in person. And quite honestly, it's a pretty similar blue to what you see in the renderings. It's a bold color.
I think it was the PR company who handles Zenith here, Gigantum. Shout out Fernanda.
Yeah.
They did like a little like revealing, like a video, like a super cut of revealing them to the press as they were showing them, and like it's definitely like seeing them all out on the tray. It's very bright looking, and like it's definitely a watch that elicits a strong reaction.
Yeah, these are not ones that you just walk right past. Like these are, I picture these in the front window of a boutique. You're gonna stop on the street to look at these watches. Yeah, there's all four of the releases there too, so you can kind of see. Oh, I guess it's 50,000. We should talk about it now.
I have to say I think I prefer this guy. This is the one with the green that they made the green case out of as well.
They did a black ceramic as well, which is a personal favorite of mine. That was one that when they sent it to me for review, I think it was 2 years ago. I wore it for like a week because I fell in love with it and never expected to. That was the first like ceramic piece that I fell in love with. So
yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, ceramic is not a material that I have much personal experience with.
Yeah. Well, maybe soon because we've seen a lot of ceramic this year.
Yeah. I want to find that green version that they did.
I think it was a Mr. Porter collab, so it might only be on the Mr. Porter website.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and just...
Oh, there you go. There it is. Right there.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is...
There you go. The Porter Pilot.
Yeah, super cool.
Also... big date complication that alone pulls me in.
Yeah, no, super cool. Yeah, I mean, I personally think that like the blue is a little much for me personally.
It's a lot.
I think any sort of like solid colored watch of any kind, ceramic, which is going to be like nice, bright and bold. It's going to be a tough thing to wear on a daily basis. I think the blue in particular. I prefer the green, but still like a very cool kind of statement from Zenith to come out with something so bold. I like the bold colors. I mean, I wear a lot of monochromatic clothing, a lot of blacks and grays, and then I'll throw on like a very vibrant yellow dial. So I think that's where it is really kind of cool, is where you have like a very kind of monotone look, and then you throw on this Smurf blue Zenith. That's awesome. But it also, I mean, at $15,000, do you want a random, statement piece that you only pull out once a month? Might be a bit of a difficult ask, but something fun for sure. Yeah. Just threw up on the screen a comment from Garrett Jones, our photographer here at Worn and Wound, very talented photographer, just like attesting to how vibrantly blue these are.
Yeah.
But again, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really kind of like bowls you over when you see it in person, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
Shout out to Garrett.
Yeah, shout out to Garrett.
You like the photographs on Worn and Wound. I mean, they're taken by many people, but mostly him these days.
He's done a lot of them. Yeah.
He's doing a great job.
He is. Let's shift over to the next one I have up here, which is actually from Panerai. One more here. There we go. So we saw a new Panerai Luminor Marina come out. I don't want to spend a ton of time on these just because I don't know that we have a ton of Paneristas in the audience here. But one cool thing to kind of note about these is that they are deeper divers, so 300 to 500 meters. You do have a slightly different movement inside of there, but then the dimensions are slimmed down a little bit too. So a little easier to wear. As we know, Panerais tend to be not unwieldy, but definitely on the bigger side of things in all aspects. So it just makes it a little easier to wear, makes it a bit more accessible, and gives you an extra 200 meters. So I don't know, if you drop it in the ocean, it'll survive for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think that the sort of traditional Panerai designs are not something that, again, is like necessarily to my personal taste, but I understand why folks would like them. One thing I'll say is, like, with updates like this, for someone who's not as familiar with the brand, like the intricacies of the line, it's like can be very hard to tell what's different.
Sure. Yeah. If you look here, you think you're looking at the exact same watch.
Yeah.
So this is an instance where more dial text would be good for you.
Yeah, no, like really point it out.
Yeah, just arrows pointing to everything.
Yeah.
But anyway, from Panerai though, like some very meaningful updates that I don't think anyone's really talking about, and I feel like more people should. So I wanted to call that out on the live stream.
That's cool.
I don't know. Panerai is a brand that we don't spend a whole lot of time covering. It's a brand that, quite frankly, has really grown on me over the years and has a lot of rich history. So maybe start paying attention to them as prices are hiking up all around them. They were very smart, and they did the price hike really early on, and they got so much flack for it. They saw the prices increasing, they jumped their prices up. But because of that, they've held their prices strong, and everyone else has kind of crept up around them. So now when you compare watches to others on the market, they're actually offering a decent value, depending on what you're looking for.
$8,800. Mamma mia.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
We were just looking at a $10,000 Grand Seiko. That's half the size. So if size is your thing, this is a value.
You want to compare the Grand Seiko to the Panerai? All right.
Slightly different.
What?
But yeah, cool watch.
Yeah, cool. All right, what's next on the long
What
list?
is next on this? Parmigiani Fleurier. So
okay, you pronounce it different than anyone I've ever talked to.
How do you pronounce it?
Parmigiani Fleurier.
Yeah.
I always hear people say Parmigiani.
There's an R before the M.
Someone in the comments tell us how you're supposed to pronounce this brand name. At any rate, tell us about this watch.
Yeah. Okay. So the Tonda PF GMT Retropante. It's a beautiful watch. Really cool complication. For those of you that don't know, you see there's 2 hour hands on there. Obviously, this is a GMT Retropante function. So when you hit the button, you'll actually see that hand snap underneath. So it completely disappears, and it looks like just a 2-hand watch. Really, really cool complication. Should be known that they are not easy to manufacture and can at times be a little bit fragile. So I had the original version in as a sample for a little time, and we had an issue where those hands didn't quite line up, and we had to photograph them from a certain angle to make it look like it disappeared. But when functioning properly, incredibly cool complication. They've updated here. Honestly, it's really more of just an iteration with a dial color and texturing, stuff like that. But just a really beautifully complicated watch with a new visually pleasing aesthetic that I really love. This is a brand that not a lot of people pay attention to because probably their price point and the name is, as we just found out, impossible to pronounce. But a watch that I think more people should pay attention to. I don't know. Did Griffin write this piece up for us? Because Griffin, I know, also has an affinity for Parmigiani, and he tends to write a lot of pieces. Griffin wrote this up for us. So go get his take on it, too, because he is a big fan of them as well. And I know he spent a lot of time with their other watches. I know he was wearing their 3-hander not too long ago, too. So check it out and ogle those photos.
I have to say, like, not many Parmigiani watches have really kind of like tickled my fancy, but this one seems really cool.
It's really beautiful.
I would love to see this one in person.
In a world of pastel dial colors right now, this is definitely not that. Like it's feigning on the pastel side of things, but it's still rich and bold enough that it pops off of the wrist, and it contrasts the watch steel nicely because they're great at finishing. So it's really, really awesome to see the dial texture and color contrast against everything else around it.
Yeah.
It can look a little bit busy in the renderings, but in person it just plays beautifully well.
I like the color of the button as well.
Yeah. To get those little gold accents.
Yeah.
And to know like it kind of matches. I don't know. Yeah. It's just like a fun little call out for sure.
No, that's great.
Little pops of color.
Also really great on pizza.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sprinkle it on. That's actually what that grain texture is. It's sprinkled Parmesan.
Sick.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
So this is a watch that nobody pays attention to ever in watchmaking. This is Chopard with the Luck. This is the new Quattro Mark IV. I don't want to spend too much time on this because, again, I don't think our audience is really that into it, but it's just kind of refined and special metals and all of that kind of stuff here. The strap system is also really cool. It's got like a quick chain strap system where it's got that little thumb flipper, so you pull it down, and it's a hook latch. So it just kind of unhooks, and you can remove the strap and put a new one on there. Yeah. That does mean that you're using proprietary straps, though, so that's kind of a hit or a miss. But a lot of the brands we've been talking about so far have a proprietary strap changing system. Yeah. So I guess you just deal with it. But yeah, longer power reserve, just obviously gorgeous movement, really well finished. Definitely one to keep an eye on. If you look at Luck models, especially in the secondary market, they tend to trade way below what they're actually sold at. Surprise. Yeah. But Chopard does a really good job of offering pretty excellent value for money. Yeah. When you compare them to others on the market. They also dropped a new Alpine Eagle in a different color, but I'm sure like most of you, I'm sick of hearing about the Alpine Eagle. I love that watch, but we have seen it so many times from other outlets that I just don't even want to talk about the new Alpine Eagle.
Okay.
Yeah.
No shade.
There they are.
Yeah.
Stunning watches. Actually, quite frankly, it might be my favorite integrated design on the market.
Wow.
Yeah, it just feels special.
Interesting.
But again, so many people have talked about these watches, and Chopard is a brand that doesn't get the love that it deserves, and unfortunately pays for a lot of coverage. So
yeah,
that's it in platinum. Also a very cool piece.
Cool.
We can go to another brand that doesn't get enough love, but I'm trying, Baume. I am trying. So this is the new Baume & Mercier Clifton. Don't worry about the numbers on there because they don't mean a whole lot, but this is now a 39 millimeter. I pulled up here. I gave you the link for the salmon dial color. They also have it in blue and I think white. But interesting things here to note. They moved the date from the 3 o'clock position down to the 6 o'clock position and then give you an Arabic numeral at 12 to balance out the design. Refine the case from 40 down to 39. I called out the Baume & Mercier Clifton Moon Phase as one of my watches of the year last year. I think I wrote about it in a piece that we did where we were picking our favorite watches from the first half of the year, and I picked that, and everyone looked at me like I had two heads.
Yeah.
Baume & Mercier Richemont Group. This is your gateway to Richemont. So a lot of the bigger high horology brands that we all quest after and love but can't afford, Baume is giving you kind of an entry-level version of that. This watch in particular, to me, kind of gives Patek Calatrava vibes. Very cool piece. Baumatic movement, so you're getting 5 days of power reserve and COSC certification. It is 50 meters, so it's going to be an everyday kind of dress watch. This is not a sport watch, obviously, but I just think visually a lot of balance, really well finished, beautiful movement, technical movement. This is the movement that a lot of people gave IWC a lot of crap for using in the Ingenieur, the Baumatic movement. Obviously, it's slightly different variation, obviously, but very similar as far as its architecture goes. And overall, I love this new release from Baume.
Yeah, it's really lovely. I mean, again, I think it's probably a watch that's worth seeing in person, but the case, I don't know, like it looks from a distance is maybe a little simple, but I could see that being in person just like feeling very refined.
It is. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of like vintage Aquaterra, like neo-vintage Aquaterra, where it has like that subtle faceting on the case sides and the lugs that when you look at it head on or in renderings, you don't necessarily pick up on that. But when you put it on the wrist, you start to notice all those little details. Yeah. Fantastic watch. Cool. They came out with a new Clifton as well, but that's their their Hampton, which is the rectangular piece with a new color iteration. Not that crazy. There's also a new Riviera that they came out with a flyback chronograph complication inside of it, which is really cool. But they also like subtly changed the case shape a little bit. Yeah, there's the 10828 in the center there. That's the new Riviera flyback. Apparently not clickable.
Nope, not clickable. Nope.
So cool.
Sorry, guys.
But the Riviera is a watch that I also like, has a lot of legitimate history. For those of you calling this a pretender to the Royal Oak, learn your history. This watch has been here for a very long time. It's not going away. They're just iterating on it. Very, very cool. Yeah, definitely an interesting piece too. Do you want to talk about like a vintage map looking dial? Such a cool piece. And the faceting on the case has been slightly refined, so it's just a little bit of a better finished overall movement with that flyback functionality in there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Pretty neat from Baume.
Throw up a comment from our friends over at Brooklyn Podcasting Studio, Josh, in the house. Yeah, just saying that Baume & Mercier definitely deserves more love. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I've been championing them for quite some time now. I wish more people would pay attention to them. I'm going to keep writing about them. So whether you want it or not, you're going to see content from me coming out about Baume. Really, really love what they're doing and hope they can kind of continue to find their audience.
Yeah, for sure. Do they still make the Baume line of watches? Like that sub-brand they made?
I haven't seen them in a very long time. I really hope not.
Yeah.
Because that would undercut everything that I've just said.
That's all right. That's all right.
But yeah, that's the new stuff from Baume & Mercier.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
I know these guys.
Yeah, we all know these guys very well at this point. Not technically Watches and Wonders, not technically Time to Watch's release. This came out just before the events happened. But we had an article that just published on it a couple days ago. This is the new Tor Auto limited edition. So if you don't know, Baltic has a really cool partnership with an automotive team out there. I think it was last year we saw that kind of red, white, and blue color scheme hit the bicompacts for the first time. Scale graph for the first time. And it was really beautiful. It was a really cool watch. They had a really cool press event that some people went to, and I was like following along on Instagram. So to see them kind of follow it up with another one here, very excited about that. I wear a Baltic chronograph quite a bit, and I think that this new design language is pretty sweet. Elodie Townsend, one of our contributors, wrote about this too. She has a very interesting connection with motorsport, and kind of goes into that with this piece as well. But what a cool piece, very design forward, and just, again, a stronger tie to their motorsport division of watches, where I don't think people necessarily always put them in that category.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think Baltic is one of those brands that they really kind of like hit on all cylinders. I think a lot of the watches they come out with like really limited exception, I'm just like, yep, that's another like great piece, and it's almost like you're so used to it from them. It's just like, oh, okay, another really cool watch, which is like
for a price point under $2,000. It's a price point that is swallowable, and to see it on the beads of rice too. I love it on the beads of rice. Mine from Baltic is on the flat link, which I really love as well, but that beads of rice I think works so well with the kind of like creamy sub registers. And
fun fact,
colors.
For a long time I thought it was beans and rice.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, with Parmesan.
I didn't hear beads of rice. I heard beans and rice, which I still think works.
It's better, I think. Yeah.
It makes a lot more sense to me.
Although what are the beans?
I don't know. Oblong beans, large grains of rice. Actually, at Wind Up Dallas, I was taking a look at this line of watches. They're Hermetique watches, and they did a limited edition, which they don't have on the site, which would make sense. Yep. I want to pull that up. Do you remember what the name of that limited edition was?
It's a dual crown Hermetique. I don't. I can pull it up off the side so you don't have any weird Google searches.
No, that's great. No weird Google searches for me. But yeah, they do a great job. I mean, we've been.
Is it? It just might be the Hermetique dual time.
Been friends of theirs for a long time.
It is. Yeah. Here you go.
Are you slacking it to me?
I am. Just sent you the link. Yeah, very cool, Ellie. The Hermetique is a watch that I gave to my older brother. And so recently at my younger brother's wedding, he wore that to the wedding. And so I don't know, it was kind of cool to see it again. And you get to see some other stuff on the screen here too.
Oh, yeah.
Did we ever play this?
Nope.
Oh.
Why would we do that?
I don't know. It's very cool. It's got a lot of sound. This is that jewel encrusted Cartier Panthère cuff. This is a video that Zach Kazan sent to me and said, do something with this. So here we are doing something.
I want to remove this just so you guys don't see all the cool slacks that Devin and I send each other.
They're fantastic.
By cool, I mean salacious.
It's mostly about beans and rice, though. So there is that.
This guy. Oof. Saw this in person. I think they're sold out, but a guy who was at the show asked if they had one, and they did, and he ended up buying it. And I immediately went to the booth to ask if they had another one, and of course they did not.
Yeah, and he tried to track the guy down who bought the first one, but he ran faster than Blake could. So.
Which is not surprising. Cool stuff from Baltic.
The crowns are a little small and a little hard to manipulate, but I love the design language of this watch. They're also they're small. Yeah. Like very small watches.
In a good way.
But super cool. I wanted to talk about the new scale graph. And then we can jump over to another Gigantum brand, actually, with Moser. Yeah. This is I called it the Museum of Art, the Moser Museum of Art, because that's what they're talking about here. It's their pop collection of the Endeavor. It's really fun. So if you actually scroll down on this webpage, you'll see all of the different versions. So there's this kind of like subcategory you can click through. But they're taking their high horology meets art concept, and what they're doing is they're actually taking stones and layering them into the dial to create these 2 or 3 tone effects if you're talking about the movement popping through. I think this is really fun. We talked about the Nomos Tangente 31 colors the other day, about how I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan because they didn't resonate with me. We've talked about how I don't love stone dials. Well, here's a lot of color and stone dials, and I don't know why, but I love these. I just think that the
They're
layering,
great.
the depth that you get with the stone layering is really cool. Obviously, we know that the Endeavor is beautifully finished and the movement's incredible and yada yada yada. But when you just take the dials for a surface value dial, they're so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're super cool. I mean, I will say that like I find these colorways that are a little bit more novel, more appealing, like these
Sure.
first two, and then you start getting into like Gulf colorways and watermelon, which we've seen a lot of, and
Sure.
sort of reverse watermelon, bubblegum. I don't know what you want to call it, but
Yeah.
no, these are super cool. These
I
are
like
great.
that one a lot. I don't know why.
No, I mean Moser for me is very hit or miss. I think they're the ones who did the cheese watch and the Apple Watch knockoff.
Yeah.
Not knockoff, but like statement piece.
Yeah.
That stuff was never to my taste, but
I thought it was fun. I loved it. I love their kind of tongue-in-cheek attitude to high horology. I'll admit that the Pioneer line doesn't really resonate with me. I get really upset that people knock Vacheron for making the 56, but they don't knock Moser for making the Pioneer. That's like a whole nother conversation we can get into at another date. But I think this was Moser just kind of seeing the trend of color and the trend of stone dials out there, and they just were like, we're going to do it our way. We're going to make it insane. I mean, we're looking at an Andy Warhol here of Moser, which is just kind of impressive.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Super cool. What do these go for? I mean, I'm sure they vary in price.
They start at 30 and then 3,500 for the simplest small seconds on there.
35,000.
Yeah.
30,500. Sick.
Yep. So
cool.
they're a lot. They are a lot. But like, why not collect them all?
Yeah.
How cool would this watch box look?
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I used to complain about this a lot more, but I try not to complain so much. I feel like there's just like with folks who are collecting at sort of a higher level, like at least when you would go to like a lot of meetups and stuff some time ago, there was just like a lot of sameness. There was a lot of like, you have to have certain things in your collection.
The checklist.
Everybody has the checklist. And it was just rare to see somebody with like a really unique collection. And whenever you see somebody who like has the means to buy whatever they want and they choose to buy the thing that maybe isn't going to give them as much street cred,
the thing that everyone wants.
Like they're buying things that like, are a little bit more on the beaten path. Like that's always really interesting. And like, if you ever see one of these in person, like go talk to.
That's going to be the weirdest person you've ever met in like the best possible way.
Yeah.
You're going to have an amazing conversation. They might like throw you in the back of a van and take you out for a nice dinner. It's going to be like a really strange encounter.
Yeah. Or they'll be threatened by you running up to them and grabbing their wrist.
Also might happen. Yeah. So please don't do that. But also
these are cool.
Don't creepily take photos from afar. Go engage. We all need new friends in this world.
It's true.
But yeah, so super cool release from them. We can jump into Oh, this is the same website, just pulled up twice. But stone dials. Stone dials.
But
hear me out.
Stone dials.
Hear me out. This is how you do stone dials right. Piaget has a long history of stone dials. We know this. Some very high horology stone dials. I think this is stunning. I don't know why. I can't figure it out. They have it in 3 different options, 3 different stones with matching straps. I pulled all 3 of them up here for you so you can kind of cycle through 2. But I couldn't tell you why I like these, but to me, this is like the perfect execution of a stone dial. Oh no, that's the new Polo 79 in white gold.
So, I mean, I can say what I really like about these.
Please, yeah, I'd love that. Because Piaget is a brand
that
you either love it and you get them, or you hate it and you don't. And I think the core group that likes them is very, very small. Or at least increasingly small.
Yeah. So, one, I really like... So I like stone dials. I think they're nice.
Sure.
And I don't think that like the randomness of them is necessarily a downside, but I really like the idea that, and again, I'm sure that not all of these are going to look exactly the same, but I'm guessing that they're all going to have this kind of like horizontal texture pattern to them.
Sure.
Which like I really like, and I feel like that kind of it plays off of like the lines of the case, like that sort of step case.
Very well.
Which I think is really interesting. Again, like I'm not the most well versed in sort of the really high end of the watch world necessarily, so I don't see as many of these sort of styled cases. But whenever I do, I think they're really lovely. Like just that sort of like textured step down shape to a dial. Something feels kind of sporty to me about this.
It's the strangest thing, right? Like, to me, this is like, I don't know. This is the guy. This is like the old football player who still goes to after hours parties and like his shirt's a little too unbuttoned and his hair's a little too messed up and his gold chains are a little too long. But like, man, does he look cool. That's this guy.
Love the world you create for the people that own these watches. They're so specific.
Highly specific. Yeah. Like, he wears Chelsea boots, but like his pants are a little too cropped. So you still see the sock. Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that like, I think this obviously is a watch at a very high price point that is, only attainable to some.
Yeah.
Good on you if you can get your hands on it.
Yeah.
But like, this is a watch I would love to see on the wrist of like, again, like someone like yourself, like, but like you were saying, you wear a lot of blacks, a lot of grays, like a lot of muted colors, like you having like someone like with that kind of style,
or like full earth tones to let the green really explode off the wrist. Shout out to Analog Shift. They've actually had a couple of the vintage versions of this watch come through, and like to see the old models and now see the new ones, which are very faithfully recreated, which is nice. But obviously now you're getting an upgrade with that in-house 501 manufacturer caliber.
Yeah.
Really cool watch. Really cool movement on the inside. It's just one I wanted to talk about for a brief moment because it's a statement. It's a real statement. And we've been talking this whole time about how vintage has really come back strong, about how people have really been leaning into the vintage revival in a different way, because we saw vintage sport. Now we're seeing vintage dress come back. I don't know that you can really call this is vintage dress for sure, but avant-garde. And I love that aspect of it.
Yeah. No, really beautiful. I mean, I think that like observing watches at a higher end from afar, like that maybe are like not within the reach of a lot of people from like a financial perspective, like it's good to see a brand like doing something that really kind of one does that price point justice, but also I think it's just doing some more interesting stuff. It's like if you're gonna like kind of put the effort in and you're gonna make a piece that's like worth that money, it's like really kind of do something interesting. Yeah, I always joke. So we are both tattooed. We're both tattooed.
Yes, yeah.
But I have joked with. I go to this one tattoo artist, Rich Fye, up in Queens. Shout out to Rich. He's a big watch guy. There are like a lot of like watch people in the tattoo space. Interesting crossover there.
Usually date justs.
Yeah. I mean, but I joke. I joke with him that like, I think watches like these higher end watches a lot of times look best on like in the scumbag look, like like heavily tattooed,
the Pete Davidson look.
Like I just love, like I just think it looks really sick. It's like an interesting contrast, and so
I think that's what Mike Nouveau has been like highlighted so heavily, is because you see Mike, who is tattooed with a ripped up t-shirt and a hat on, looking kind of scrungy, but he's got an old vintage Piaget with a stone dial on.
Yeah,
you're like, that dude is awesome. I want to hang out with that guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
Cool piece.
Cool. All right, we're gonna move. Do we want to talk about this guy?
Very, very briefly. They came out with it in gold last year. This year they came out with it in the white gold. Cool. I don't know. It's not one that really works for me. But again, I know that the Piaget purists absolutely went nuts for the Polo 79 last year. Friend of mine from back in Cleveland, he's very much into that piece, and he at one point he told me, he's like, if I could have any one watch, that's the watch, which blows my mind, because like this is not a go with everything, do everything kind of watch. But I think it looks really cool in the white gold too. It's not quite as flashy. Yeah. We recently saw Zach Weiss and I were on a plane back from Dallas from the Wind Up Watch Fair, and our flight attendant had a vintage cuff, polo cuff on, which is this, but like more of the square shape.
Yeah.
But it was a knockoff. So it was like really funny to see that was her choice in knockoff watches.
Yeah.
I don't know, just another neat statement piece from a guy with a shirt who's a little too unbuttoned.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Shout out to that guy.
Yeah. Time for some more high horology. We've seen the chronometer before. We have this new black on black on black version.
I can't tell the time.
You really can't until light hits the dial. So another person in our industry, Logan Baker, he shared a really cool wrist roll video of this watch, where you see it's like black on black on black, and then you roll it up, and all of a sudden you see those indices, and you can see the time, and you can really read it beautifully. A bit of a contrasting second hand. And then the story continues when you flip the watch over and you realize there's a moon phase on the back in the movement. So it really just allows the movement and the dial side to be, frankly, two different things. Very vibrant, very bright, very well finished moon phase, crazy complication. And then you flip it over and boom, you've got this very stark, monochromatic, kind of hard to read.
Yeah.
a little bit more organically shaped dial. So just a neat kind of juxtaposition between the two pieces.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky in that I have a friend who owns a chronometer blue, which is the blue version of this watch. So I've had a little bit of hands-on time with that one, and it is, like everything Journe, incredible in person and mouth-watering and expensive. So just a neat release. We don't spend a ton of time on that one either, but just want to pay attention to. From the weird and wacky to the weird and wacky. The Patek desk clock.
That person looks like they have frostbite.
Yeah. The finger condoms they're strong on this guy here.
Yeah.
This clock though, 31-day power reserve.
Wow.
For a desk clock.
That's cool.
It's like $1.2 million.
Sick.
Incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
But look at how beautiful this thing is.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to push all of the knobs and pushers and twist all the crowns and really kind of get into this. But why? Why Patek? I guess the answer is why not.
Yeah.
But this is super cool to see come from Patek.
I hope that someone who purchases this uses it for like their kids, like thing that they like push and pull and twist, and they're in like kids' room or whatever.
I actually want this on my desk, and like halfway through every meeting, I'll be like, "Hold on, I need to wind my clock really quick," and like open up. It creaks open ever so. I mean, it's probably finished to the point where it doesn't creak at all. But like you make the creak sound as you. Then you wind it up a little bit.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I mean, I think that stuff like this always just reminds me of, when you go to, like when we were at British Watchmakers Day last year, we went to this like really great Breguet exhibit and sort of like had a lot of significant pieces in there. Anytime you just look at like horological items from the past when, we were really kind of like developing this discipline, and you just sort of see these kind of ornate things, the things that were made for like royalty and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like this feels like it's straight out of that playbook.
It's super precise. Again, 31-day power reserve. I think it's like plus or minus a second a day or something like that. It's really crazy. The nice thing being a desk clock, they don't have to account for like vibrations and stuff like that like you normally would with a wrist worn watch. So they can be a little bit more tight with tolerances and whatnot. I don't know. I just was really excited to see this for the simple fact of I feel like Patek has been doing a really good job of leaning into their own hype over the past couple of years. And I'm just glad to see that they didn't lose the regal elegance that like Patek is also known for, because they did make royalty watches. They did make clocks. They did, all of this different stuff. So it's nice to see that they're kind of keeping with that, but then still putting out these incredible showpieces. Yeah. Because I think too often we see brands where they get into their own hype and then they just release iteration after iteration after iteration. And none of us ever see the behind the scenes. We didn't talk about like Grand Seiko. They came out with some really cool jewelry pieces that we didn't really talk a whole lot about. We just showed you that Cartier cuff, which is a jewelry piece sort of that nobody really wants to talk about. So why not talk about the clocks as well? I think they deserve their moment.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah. That's the only thing I actually pulled up from Patek, so we can skip if you want. Okay. We talked about this with Kazan already. This is the honey gold Odysseus. Yep. In steel, it's really good, hard to get. Now there's a honey gold. It's going to be impossible to get, but beautiful. Here we've got the 1815. Zach Weiss called this one of his watches of the show. Yeah.
He has a good social media reel up right now where he kind of talks about what makes it so appealing.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll leave that to him. You know, he got hands-on. He talked about it. Really cool piece, 34 millimeters. So it's small, refined. Again, very classically proportioned, very slim. But you can get it in pink or white gold if you can request the price.
Yeah.
Vacheron. What are you doing here? This is insane. The most complicated wristwatch ever made.
Yeah.
Was anyone asking for it? No.
Super cool.
Yeah. I think after we saw the Berkeley Grand Complication pocket watch, if you want to call it, it'll fit in nobody's pocket. Yeah. We saw that pocket watch released last year, which was a follow-up to one that they released, I believe, 2 years before that. The most complicated watch at the time. And if you look at those, because no one actually got to touch them, they were only for looking at, and no one was allowed to play with them. They were monstrously thick, like 35 millimeters thick, these giant things that you couldn't really put anywhere, but were super complicated. They were commissioned one of ones. This piece here, I think the biggest story is not necessarily just that it is the most complicated wristwatch ever, but the fact that you can own one of these. If you want one, they will make you one. If you want to change the dial color, they'll do that for you. This is not a one-of-one commissioned piece. This is technically a production piece that they are putting into their collection. Yeah. Which is insane.
Yeah.
Like, think about how much of one person's life you are owning if you buy this watch.
I mean, I think that's the primary consideration when you buy the watches.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, no, it's what I like about it too is again, maybe not going to articulate this super well, but something about it feels like a lot less I don't know, like high luxury aesthetically. It feels like a lot more like practical looking. Like,
yeah, it looks almost sporty.
Yeah, it's I feel like this is a watch that as absurd as it might look on your wrist, as some of the other watches of this style, like this one, to me, it feels like you could wear it.
Yeah, and it's meant to be. They're giving press hands-on time with this. They actually allowed press to set the time on this watch, which usually with pieces like this, they do not let you do. So it's really cool. They stand behind it. They know that this watch is ready to go. This isn't just a dummy watch that they're showing off about something they could theoretically do. Yeah. Vacheron stepped out and said, hey, we are one of the oldest continuing brands. We are still one of the most innovative brands, and we're going to keep blowing your mind year after year. Super, super cool piece from them. Yeah.
Ty asked, what's the service cost on something like this? If you have to ask, you'll never find out.
That's the thing, is like the retail on these. I don't know the retail on these. I heard a rumor that it was around like $2 million. Service cost on that, probably $2 million. Yeah. Because I mean, if it takes someone that long to make this watch, it's going to take them just as long, if not longer, to service it. Yeah. So if anything does go wrong, you're not getting that back for a very long time. Yeah. Which is enough time for you to build up enough money to potentially pay for that servicing. Yeah. We'll see.
Fair enough. Hopefully nobody's like mortgaging anything to buy these things.
No. If you did that, I think that they would somehow get a tip from the Swiss banks, and then you would not be allowed to buy it anyway. So. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Hermes. Interesting.
Okay, Hermes cut, one of my favorite releases from last year. This year they came out with the Le Temps Suspendu. I don't know how you actually pronounce that.
Whoa, sorry about that.
It's an upsized version of the cut. It has a very interesting, you can see the seconds running backwards. It's a weird piece from Hermes, but still like beautiful in its asymmetrical design. I want more cut. I want the cut, because last year's cut was in 36 millimeters. I want them to make more in this 39 millimeter size. Couldn't really care less about the complication or the movement of this piece in particular. For me, it was really the size that was the call out. So I'm hoping that we see the cut 39 make its way out here, and I can get it in that steel with the gold bezel, because that's really the one that I'm like, ooh, I want that watch. But I thought just a really beautiful watch that we should take a look at, because I don't see anyone talking about this right now. And I think that visually, at the very least, it's interesting enough to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. It's lovely. I mean, I think I really love the. I don't know if they're under the radar. I don't know if they're underappreciated, but like
I think so.
Like Hermes watches in general, you think?
Yeah, I do. I don't think anyone looks at Hermes and thinks that they really. I don't think a lot of people know that they make a watch. The H08 was really the first watch that people noticed from them, and that was what 3 years ago now. I don't know. But I think that was the watch that people first were like, oh, Hermes is making really cool watches. That was their kind of like rounded square watch that they did. And then again, last year they followed it up with the cut, which I really liked. I thought it was a really cool piece, but again, I didn't see a ton of people talking about it. Now I have this amazing platform, so we're going to talk about Hermes watches, because they deserve it. They should get more credit than they are currently.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, some folks in the sorry Sean, apparently that noise freaked out his dog.
Good.
Yeah, no, super cool. I mean, I think so I was also thinking about this the other day in my quiet personal time, but I miss the big shows. I miss the Basel. I miss being able to sort of see stuff and discover things. But regardless, I think and I think that these shows are really valuable. As much as like the world doesn't need to all physically be in one place to talk about product releases. But one downside is something's gonna get lost in the shuffle.
100%.
Several things are gonna get lost in the shuffle, and here's a good example.
Very much so. Yeah, I haven't seen anyone, maybe one account, talking about this watch. Very, very quiet release from them. Hopefully it picks up steam, and this is one of those stories that comes out later. But yeah, just again, very overlooked.
Yeah, cool. We want to jump to.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you go back to JLC for a second here.
Okay.
Just one thing I wanted to call out when we were talking about it yesterday, but I didn't. We have the Reverso Tribute monoface manually wound JLC Reverso here at $8,900. What I really appreciate about JLC this year, they are the watchmaker's watchmaker, right? You know, they want to make sure that they're really out there refining their craft. Cool thing about this piece is that at Watches and Wonders for this year, they came out with the very uber expensive watch, the crazy Reversos that no one can afford but everyone appreciates. And then they also came out with their most attainable JLC Reverso watch. And so unlike most brands who treat Watches and Wonders as their showtime, JLC came out and they released things on both ends of that spectrum to make sure that they're servicing all of their customers out there. So for an aspiring Reverso owner, that is a very positive thing to see. They haven't forgotten about me. They're still making watches for the little man out here. But I think just like a really cool move for a brand to go, hey, yeah, you can look at our incredible guilloche enamel minute repeater dial, but then also like look at this white monoface for a price point that it's still expensive, but more attainable than anything else you've seen recently.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Reverso is one of those watches that's on the list.
100%.
I feel like one day.
Red dial, small seconds, monoface, hit me up.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely on there. Yeah, also saw that they brought the somewhat problematic Derrick Rose out to Geneva to
They did
show the brand. So
yeah,
that's
Chicago
cool.
love. Cool. That's all I have for that one.
Yeah.
We talked about Czapek a little bit. This is that article that Kazan was mentioning here. Brett wrote this article up for us here. I'm sure Kazan's actually going to have a bit of a follow-up because this is a watch that, in Zach's own words, was his watch of the show. Mind you, this was halfway through the first day, so that might have changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's spectacular looking.
It is. And Czapek is just, it's one of those brands, again, that kind of flies under the radar, but when they pop up, everyone, I think, stops and appreciates them. A lot like Armin Strom and Arnold & Son. You know, they're these brands that kind of fly under the radar a bit because their price points are high and they're very, like, high watchmaking.
Yeah.
But boy, are they something to appreciate.
Yeah, really beautiful in this, like, gray color.
Yeah, and just like visually really attractive, despite that it's like a bit of a crazier looking watch.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, super fun. So yeah, go check out that write-up if you want more. This is one that I think a lot of people missed because the embargo dropped at like 2 a.m. the day before Watches and Wonders, or the day of Watches and Wonders. So really cool piece, updated perpetual calendar from Frederique Constant. Most people don't understand that Frederique Constant is like a legit watchmaker. They are inside of the Citizen brand, but they are on another level. They are the proud manufacturers of like 35 or 36 in-house calibers. They've really been innovating and coming up with complications on their own. They're a legitimate watchmaking house. Their name might be lost on you, might be a little bit hard to pronounce at times. I think in our own article, we put up the content. So like we get it. It's not an easy brand to follow along with, and not a lot of people are talking about them. But when you look at this watch, you're getting a perpetual calendar here for under $10,000 and in a pretty refined and sleek package, in my opinion. I think this is a fantastic looking watch. More of an iteration from Frederique Constant than really a new imagination of the actual model. But yeah, really, really beautiful piece.
Yeah, it's tough because, you know, I totally agree with what you're saying about FC, and it's hard to be the brand that makes really like high horology or makes complicated watches at sort of like the most affordable price, or one of the most affordable prices, because while it's simultaneously very cool, I think that the kind of general sort of enthusiast market can sometimes think that like, oh, well, it's like, but it's cheap, or
that's what they think,
whatever the case be, even though that might not be the case. I think that it's sort of it's a tough position to play, I think.
Very much so.
Yeah, you're either the most, you know, you're the best watch at the price, or you're the cheapest version of that really great watch.
I think this somehow kind of lands in between, even though it is both.
Yeah.
I just like the proportions are incredible. The symmetry is really nice. I challenge anyone watching to go look up FC. Dive into it a bit more. I don't love their open heart, which is what they're known for. I don't love the globe stamping on the dial of the High Life, but they have some pieces in there that like really, really speak to me. And I mean, they're going to be with us at the Wind Up Watch Fairs too. So hopefully this piece comes with them. If not, I mean, I'm going to hit them up and be like, hey, bring this. We want to see it.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah, if you haven't had hands-on with FC, or not in a very long time anyway, definitely stop by and check them out, because their quality is way better than you might expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that might have been it for your list of watches, unless there's something that I'm missing.
It might have been. I mean, we also put out articles, same 2 a.m. release time for Alpina. They dropped a revival version and then a new Alpina. Norqain released a new, smaller version of the Wild One, which is pretty cool. IWC dropped a couple other watches that are not Ingenieurs, which you should definitely head to our website and check out. I think we have coverage on those either out now or coming out soon. We're playing on like multiple time zones and multiple time frames, so who knows what we've talked about and not talked about. Hublot has their Big Bang revitalization, which they're doing new colors and new styles. Here's that Alpina reissue we talked about.
Yeah,
very
super cool.
Yeah, very vintage inspired, very cool pieces. Also kind of like a bit of a departure from what we're used to from Alpina in some aspects, but also what a lot of people love about Alpina is like the classic styling. So I'm glad to see they're not just abandoning that.
Yeah, for sure. And this is the new Wild One from
Norqain.
Yeah.
The chronograph is what we're looking at.
Oh, sorry.
Too. No, you're good. Also a very cool piece. Independent chronograph, skeletonized, super lightweight, very cool. So we've got that one out. We've got the smaller Wild ones, which came out, which are pretty cool. I know Kat was this morning sharing some photos and videos of the Ulysse Nardin Air diver, which is like the lightest dive watch ever made, which is cool, but it's also like still 16 thick, so I don't really understand. People are freaking out. Ulysse Nardin makes some like really crazy watches. The Freak is super impressive, and they're really big on innovations, but they're also watches that I don't really ever see anywhere. I had the Freak in for the Golden Black Freak in for review for a little while, and it was cool to look at for a little while, but then after that I was kind of like, all right, time.
Devin always brings the Freak to the office. You know what I'm saying?
I had to take the Freak off.
All right. Well, I mean, I think we're kind of coming up on 2 hours. Another 2-hour gargantuan live stream featuring.
This felt like a long one.
Yeah. This is good. I mean, we got through a lot more brands. We barely spoke almost about anything yesterday.
We came with a mission.
Yeah. But yeah, I think all in all, let's maybe use the last few minutes. Let's just consider Watches and Wonders over, even though you know, it's still technically running.
It is, yeah.
How do you feel about this year's Watches and Wonders? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being mind-blowing, greatest Watches and Wonders ever, 1 being who cares? Where would you put this?
I mean, it's like a... so this is really difficult because I've been having this exact conversation with a lot of people, both in our industry and out of our industry, enthusiasts, fans, whatever you want to call them. I don't know how to classify it because for me, overall, you look at the show, I think it was a soft year for a lot of brands. I think we saw a lot of iteration and not a lot of innovation, which, whatever. I think we saw a lot of sameness from brands. You know, we see Rolex come out with an integrated design. We've seen a ton of that. We see 3 or 4 different jump hour complications. We see, a couple minute repeaters came out this year. We're used to seeing like 1 or 2. We saw a handful. So definitely interesting in that sense. And I think because the show goes as Rolex goes, unfortunately. I really hate that I'm saying that, but I think it's true. If Rolex doesn't have a big splashy year right off the bat, everyone just says the show sucks and everyone moves on. But if Rolex comes out and does the craziest thing, everyone can do nothing and they'll still say this is the best Watches and Wonders ever. I look at it as a bit of a soft year as far as releases go, but there are still so many models that were announced at this year's Watches and Wonders that I'm beaming. I mean, I've been up at like 4 or 5 in the morning every single day this week because I'm on Geneva time trying to work with our team on the ground there. But then I'm also up until 10, 11 p.m. because I'm still like reading articles that we're putting out and watching videos. There's it might not have been the splashiest year. The brands that I'm used to seeing huge hits from might have not released the same huge hits that I'm used to, but there are still enough models that I'm like ready to fight to get those in for editorial because I cannot wait to see them. Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, I think if based on what you said, if you go by kind of like how Rolex went, I think the Land Dweller, I feel like is going to be pretty divisive.
Yeah, it already is.
Yeah, super divisive. I think people are really excited about the movement, obviously, but I don't think anything else they came out with is really kind of has a whole lot of staying
Ceramic
power.
Dial.
Yeah, watch out. But I think that, it's like a little bit boring from there. I mean, I think Tudor, as it usually does, had a good year. I think there's a lot of stuff for like enthusiasts to get excited about.
Yeah.
Again, not a ton of new stuff, or like not a ton of like wild stuff, but the stuff they came out with, like the Pelagos Ultra and the White Dial, Black Bay Pro,
Opaline
Dial. Yeah. Like people are gonna. Like those are great. You're gonna see those on people's wrists.
Yeah.
Like
you're gonna see a ton of those in the wild.
Yeah. And I think what Cartier did was really cool. But I agree. Like, not like the wildest year
no
ever for watches and wonders. Also, Oris. Like I think like what they brought out with those pointer dates is like really great. Those are such cool watches.
So I gave Oris a bit of a hard time last year because they updated the Aquas, which is like the most subtle refinement that you could make to the Aquas ever, and they called it this new line. And I looked at them and I was like, guys, this is the same. You didn't do anything here. This new pointer date looks and feels completely different than the old version. As a lover of the old pointer dates, I'm so excited to see these in the metal. I don't need another one, but I might buy one because I really, really love the new styling and design language for sure.
Yeah, I think we had them in the office briefly, and I missed them while they were here. But
same, they'll be back.
Okay.
I've already put an email out there.
Cool. Yeah, but those are super cool.
They are
super cool, and good to see Oris continuing to use color in that way,
and different color too. Yeah, they're really good about using there's like the same colors that a lot of brands pull from. Oris kind of goes just a little outside of that, but in a good way.
Yeah. Interesting. Sean Martin says that he leans towards IWC winning the show, but not by leaps and bounds.
He's not the only one. I've gotten that comment from a lot of people. A lot of people were DMing me on Instagram asking what I thought won the show. Yeah. For me, it's JLC, but that's just because I have very weird taste. IWC killed it this year. The new engineers are really cool. The new pilot, like there's really cool watches from IWC. I think those are really going to kind of dominate the news cycle for the next couple weeks.
Yeah. I also wonder, and I mean, I think time will tell on this, but I wonder to what extent like Bremont did the most for their brand.
I think they did.
For this year. I feel like, again, not to knock them, but I think it's fair to say that the general consensus on the rebrand was not quite as popular as they were maybe hoping. Like there was some, like it didn't go. You can be blunt. Like it didn't go well. I don't think
the
for whatever
year.
The feedback really wasn't great. But I think that this year seemed like a really big course correction. It seems like, it's again, I can't remember who mentioned it in the chat, but just like, they were talking to Bremont, I guess, previously looking at the watches. And they were like, this Watches and Wonders in 2025 is going to be the year where you really get to see where the brand is trying to go. And I feel like that did clarify.
Yep.
And, I maybe need to sit on it a little bit more. I'd love to see them in person. But, like, that dual crown, like, it is sticking in my mind as a watch that I'd really like to see in person.
No, I agree. And Kyle, our head of partnerships, talked about it too. He and I actually almost got into it talking about Bremont yesterday because he's like, I love the rebrand. He's a marketing guy. That's where his mind goes. And I don't like the rebrand. I liked what they were doing before. So it's interesting that both he and I like the new collection. I think that says a lot about what they did. They did the whole rebrand. They came out with their base collection and they were like, okay, go ahead and dunk on it, hate on it for a whole year. That's fine. But in a year from now, we're going to show you what we're made of and show you our new direction, which again, that's what we're just talking about. I'm into it. I'm really excited to see where they go next. I think that their next release is going to be their most important one. Because if the next one comes out and it like feigns more on the first releases kind of stature, it's going to be a real big deflating balloon effect. But if it comes out and it's killer, boom, all of a sudden they're back on the map and everyone forgets about the logo.
Curious to see if you start seeing those on people's wrists. I mean, Bremont in its heyday was a watch that you definitely saw quite a bit. So
in our circles.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, excited to see that.
Well,
cool. You made it through another 2-hour gauntlet of Watches and Wonders talk.
Yeah, with the two of us talking about it too, which
Tweedledee and Tweedledum, right?
Not the best.
But I mean, I think this is our first foray into live streaming. I definitely think it's something that we're excited about and that we want to do more of.
I've had a ton of fun doing it. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Please use those coupon codes in the description. I didn't get approval on those. I just made them right before the live stream and then dropped them in the comments. So use them because they're going to be good for about a week. And just a little thank you for joining us here. And hopefully we continue to see you back into the live streams. Hopefully we do this a bit more. We get to interact with you guys live and actually pull your comments up and talk to you without having to wait for us to reply in our Slack Plus group or emails or whatever the case may be.
But yeah, so keep eyes peeled for future live streams. Definitely going to be doing this a lot more often.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining. Don't forget, tons of content about Watches and Wonders and Time to Watches on Worn and Wound. And I'm sure a whole deluge of podcast content from the team on the ground once they have the wherewithal to get that edited and published.
Over the next month, too. We're not, like we've talked about already, our team is not just a 1 week content cycle for Watches and Wonders. We're going to continue to put out the content. We're going to continue to get hands-on. We're going to have those watches in the office here for live photography of them all. Not all of them, but, the ones that we're looking at. So keep an eye out. Just maybe subscribe to our newsletter. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Cool. Thanks, guys.